What is the most degrading thing that you have ever done for money? Story 1. My best friend came home from the bars one night, drunk and hungry. His roommate, not me, was the only one with food. My friend asked for the frozen pizza and was told he can have it if he snorts the roommate's pee. So my friend proceeded to snort a shot glass of his pee. After puking, he got the pizza, put it in the oven, passed out and awoke to a charred, black, uneaten pizza. This may not count, as the payment was pizza and not money, but I'll never get a better chance to tell that story on here. Story 2. I met this guy on Craigslist who offered me $100 for a back massage. When I got there, he wanted me to step all over his back, then his neck, then his face. It was a little strange, but he said he had been going to a massage therapist in another town, and I thought, maybe it's just something they do there. Well, later he contacted me and asked if I'd stomp on his for $500. I did it. He had a special table he made for this and everything, and some very weird role-playing he wanted me to get into. I was fully clothed the whole time, but he wanted me to pretend I was a giant goddess and was squishing him like a bug. It was very fucking weird. Story 3. I needed money pretty badly when I was 17. I moved out of my parents' house and couldn't afford to eat or pay rent, and I got laid off my job. I went around house to house asking if they needed their lawn raked. After a couple confused looks, why is a 17-year-old doing this? I prepared a fake clipboard and donation slips for multiple sclerosis, saying I would rake their lawn if they made a $10 $40 donation. I couldn't believe how many of these I was able to do. By the way, raking lawns is hard work. I never donated the money. I used it to live, but since I lost my mom and sister to MS, which kind of put me in that situation, I don't feel bad about it. Story 4. When I worked at a grocery store, I used to eat peanut butter and jelly sandwiches on break since it was cheap. I'd buy all the ingredients and just sit in the break room and scarf down 3 to 4 sandwiches before returning to work. One day, one of my coworkers saw me scarfing them down and asked if I could eat the whole loaf of sandwiches. I told him I think I could, but asked what he wanted to bet me. He said if I could do it, that he'd buy me a whole loaf of bread, jar of peanut butter, and jar of jelly. Naturally, I agreed. I managed to eat the whole thing in a little under 30 minutes, but admittedly, I was being pretty sparse with my usage of PB&J by the end. When I finished, I felt like walking at my normal speed would make my body explode, so I walked at half speed and took it easy. Admittedly, I did it as a broke college kid because I'd save about 4 by having him buy me a new jar of peanut butter and a new jar of jelly. This experience didn't stop me from continuing to eat PB&J on future breaks. Also, later that night, I took the biggest poop in the world. Story 5. A friend got me a job for a day collecting bottles in a bar right in the center of Pride weekend in Birmingham, UK, when I was a student back in 2005. The degrading bit was that I got continually groped all day, high spirits and mostly, and, because I needed the money, I didn't leave. I worked 14 hours straight for $70 before going to my job in a bar in the center of town. The sad part is that my car got towed whilst I was in there by one of these scam tiny sign on a disused patch of grass towing companies, and it cost $160 to get it back. I was also late to my bar job. Ended up working the night before, that day and that night, 35 hours of a 40-hour period, and didn't even break even. Story 6. I was like 8 and wanted money at the cottage. Aunt told me I could stir the stinky hole, outhouse, if I was that desperate. So I found the longest downed tree branch I could, took off all the twigs, etc. Then used that 8-foot bastard to stir it up, then went to collect my money. She laughed at me, said she couldn't believe it. So I fished the branch out of the forest and left it on the hood of her car. Story 7. Apparently my teenage nephew needs Fortnite money so bad he resorted to stealing my stuff. Like I don't trust this sweet little man anymore because he's so addicted to goddamn Fortnite that he stole a pocket knife and a dugout from me. Like he got $15 max. He risked our very close relationship for what, 2 skins? My kid racked up $200 in Fortnite BS. We share a PS4. I'm a gamer and buy games online with my credit card. He starts bragging to me about all this free stuff he's getting from Fortnite. Lies. Meanwhile, he knows he's buying this and that. I saw my statement and nearly died. So addicted to this game, he stole and flexed on his own mother. Wow. Story 8. I feel like this may not entirely fit the criteria, but in terms of what I was once offered, had a girl in high school offer a if I brought her some ice cream. There was no wink or nod. The text literally wrote, "If you bring me ice cream, I will blow you." Found out 2 of my best friends also got offers that night. Surprisingly, for 3 teenage boys, she did not get her ice cream. Story 9. I was 13, and my brother had to do community service for some stupid illegal thing he did. My brother didn't want to do it and decided he was not going to go. My father asked me if I would do it in his stead. No one bothered to check IDs, just expected a kid to show up. So my brother wouldn't get into more trouble. I negotiated for a new video game if I would do it. The community service was about 80 hours at a local park. All of the guys there treated me like trap and talked down to me because I was some kid that up. I took it and just bided my time till the end. At the end of my last day after I got the signed-off form, I told them how stupid they were for not realizing that someone else did the community service. One guy threatened to tell someone about it. I countered that it would look really bad on them for not asking for something as basic as identification and left. Nothing ever came of it. Yes, it was bad parenting, but the flip side was, my brother was pretty bad at not being a screwed up. If memory serves the game I got was Earthbound for the SNES. Totally worth it. My brother stopped being a screw-up after life dealt him a series of harsh blows. He is married with kids, a nice job, and a nice house. So yeah, he got his mind together now. I do not have that copy of Earthbound anymore. The siren call of the trade-in at Funkoland was too great for a child that was too young to work legally. But rest assured, I did beat it before it was traded. Story 10. I used to write erotic stories on commission. That's not the degrading part. I loved doing it. And most of them were a joy to write, even if it wasn't my own personal fetish. It was nice to know that someone was out there getting off to what I was writing. Even if the money was limited, as it was when I was starting out, I had a couple of clients who hired me on the regular. A couple of times at the start, I took commissions for things I wasn't comfortable writing, but I needed the money. That didn't feel great. It's hardly high literature, but you can ask anyone who does it. You put a lot of yourself into your work, and having to basically just dance for someone else's, often pretty disturbing fetishes, isn't a good feeling. It took about 3 or 4 bad commissions before I decided that I was absolutely, no way, going to take on a commission I didn't enjoy, or that made me feel gross ever again. Story 11. I'm a dude for context. And this is not necessarily degrading, but it was pretty out there in terms of getting money for me. I did figure posing for a small art collective when I was in college. Very professional with exceptionally talented artists, the whole shebang. The dude who set it up asked me if I would do it for a group at another studio, in the nude. Got to pose naked next to a beautiful woman in front of 50 or so absolute strangers. It was a very liberating experience to say the least. Once you've been naked in front of a room full of strangers, not much else phases you after that. I didn't get a boner. You are not going to pop a random boner in front of a shit ton of people. It's not like when you had to give a class presentation in the 10th grade with your dick flipped up into your waistband. There are far more things you will be thinking if hella people are staring at your naked body. And in my limited experience, the blood is not going to your dong. Story 12. I was in a gay erotica film. Only paid $250. Most uncomfortable experience of my life. One of my clients wanted to get into the pornography business. He was told that before he could do straight work with all the hot chicks, he had to do a solo video and a couple of gay videos. He got paid $150 to wear his service uniform while on an American flag. He got paid $200 to perform oral on another guy while wearing his uniform. And $350 to get sodomized. Apparently some people have a thing for a man in uniform, but it's the Uniform Code of Military Justice violation. Then the director said, "I'll call you if I need you for a straight scene." Someone reported him to his chain of command, and he spent 3 months in jail, lost several $1,000s pay, and got a bad conduct discharge from the service. Story 13. I worked as a cook in a strip club. The kind where the kitchen was at the end of the bar and you'd have to take the customers' orders yourself. One night, this drunk, arrogant piece of crap comes up and starts bragging about how much money he had. Then he asked for deep-fried chicken we had, which was about $10. Guy pulls out a 20 and flicks it my way. Tells me he could afford to pay even more. Pulls out another 20 and does the same. Then another, still bragging about his massive wealth. So I proceeded to cook him up the best chicken tendies money could buy. Kept the extra cash but felt real dirty about it for the rest of the night. Why? What's wrong with getting tipped $45 for making chicken tenders? Story 14. I have a friend who is a dommy, and she has a couple slaves who live overseas that paid her money, like $150, $200, to send a condom with her husband's jizz in it. They want to eat the jizz to humiliate themselves on her behalf. Her husband wants no part of it, so she asked me if I would jizz in a condom and mail it to them for half the money. Hell yeah, I will. Easiest $100 I ever made. Also, I was telling another friend about the jizz money, and she was utterly appalled. I mentioned that there was another potential customer, and she says, "Oh my gosh, you have to do it again?" And I had to correct her. I said, no, I get to do it again. Story 15. Was an absolutely broke student, we are talking literally zero in the bank, when my friends were going to a house party that weekend. Well, have fun, guys. I don't even have bus fare to get there, never mind cash for a pizza and some beer. One of my mates says they will loan me $25 and just pay them back when I got paid from work. Turns out the place we were going to was 2 bus rides to get there, with no late-night student bus getting back to town. So I was going to have to use the remaining $20 to split a taxi fare with one of the guys back home, which would have been about $30 in total. This left me approx $5 for food and beer at this party that we had just rocked up to. Screw it, I'll just get the cheapest bottle of cider and 4 cans of pisswater lager and just get hammered on that. Get back to the party and put the 2L bottle of something resembling apple cider and the cans on the kitchen worktop looking for a pint glass to start making some snake bites. When I hear a massive crash behind me, a drunk girl had knocked the cans of lager onto the hard stone floor, bursting 2 of them in a shower of lukewarm booze. My friends decided to host a fundraiser for me, where for every dare I completed they would chuck in a $1 coin. Over the course of the night I swapped my t-shirt with one of the girls, who was wearing a small, petite pink tank top. I'm a 6-foot-tall guy who weighs 18 stone, 250 lbs, pulled out some of my chest hair and ate it in a bread bun. Put some lip gloss on and had to refer to the other guys as Sailor for an hour. Waxed my shins, made a fake account on Adult Fantasy RPG forum and had to read out the few responses I got in the guise of Gandalf. Complete with mop, clean and dry, beard, wearing a green dressing gown at the top of the stairs. All in all, it was fun night, but damn, I was whoring myself out $1 at a time. Story 16. Being a teacher of 13 to 15-year-olds. My mom and my sister are both teachers, and my sister started her first school year just a month ago. Note, she has already low self-esteem, but is a very happy, outgoing person. One of the kids told her she would be better off if she herself, because she wanted the kids to sit at designated places the first week so she can remember the names of the kids. It absolutely broke her. Teacher here. You gotta help prep her for that stuff. When a kid tells her to go herself, the best idea is to just laugh out loud about how petty they are. Then tell them that they can go to prison for that and send them to the office. Shake her head afterwards in disbelief, then call their parents at the end of the day. Some parents might not give a crap, but at least the kid and the class know that A, she means business, and B, that she has tougher skin than that. I hate to say it, but if that breaks her, maybe she shouldn't be teaching junior high students. That age is really tough to deal with. She can learn, but she needs to develop a thick skin or she'll be miserable. Story 17. Dressed up as a furry, got attacked by a deranged patient. Big Al and Santa Claus saved me. Not worth time and a half pay. Once upon a time, I was an up-and-coming disc jockey. I worked nights. Didn't make a lot of money then, but loved my gig at a classic rock radio station. Said radio station had a mascot. One day the boss asked me if I wanted to earn some extra cash, as the mascot and I agreed. To make a long story short, Santa Claus, Big Al, the University of Alabama's mascot, and me in my radio station's mascot suit were touring a Veterans Administration hospital to spread some holiday cheer. It was going fine until we went to the psychiatric ward. My first clue trouble was brewing should have come when they unlocked a metal gate, let us in, then locked it back behind us. But whatevs. We are going along miming hi to patients, etc. when a disturbed man leaps out of his bed and knocked me down. My mascot suit was pretty chubby, so it mostly protected me from the blows to my body as he attacked me. Thank God the head was so big. The dude pounded away at it, leaving several deep dents in the character's cheeks and head. To me, it seemed to take forever, as I was being mauled. But in fairly short order, Big Al and Santa Claus came to my rescue and got the patient off me. I have no idea where the orderlies or whatever had gotten off to, but they showed back up and restored order. And that was the first and last time I've ever worn a mascot suit. Story 18. Pretending to like people when I worked as bellman valet at a fancy hotel. Basically, every businessman man or family man or cougar or drunk XYZ would think I was their best friend. I bent over backwards and went out of my way on any task, because that was expected. This hotel was around 130 years old and had a mystique to it that made everyone act all pretentious towards the help. We were expected to be on stage at all times. We had a secret bell closet that was the changing room for the valets and bellmen, a hidden door underneath some stairs. So there really was a mystique built around the whole process. Drunk businessmen were the worst. They would wave a $20 and ask you to do ridiculous crap. Bring me a potted plant and something to water it with. I miss my wife's garden. Yeah, sure. Then I sprint off and get them a freaking plant and watering can for my $20. They're the worst, because they actually say snide shit about you just doing your job. Just ask him to do it. He'll do anything for $5 that you tell him to do. I mean, yes, I will, but screw you, bro. One guy would insult my haircut every time he saw me, then apologize and give me $20. I made about $140 off that guy. Got $100 for running to get a guy an ashtray that was smoking a cigar. He was right outside the hotel's restaurant, and the night manager of the restaurant came out to tell him to move away. Instead, he asked me for an ashtray. Well, sorry, old hutch. Night manager. This guy has 100 with my name on it. Cougars were the only ones that ever made me feel dirty, though. They'd call you to their room and wear the complimentary robe, just leave it hanging open. They wouldn't treat me like a person, though, just a piece of meat. They'd keep on calling the front desk, requesting some crap from their car, run up a newspaper, corkscrew, extra pillow, etc., just to flirt with you, say lewd remarks, or just walk around showing off their nudity, I guess. Pat you on the give you $5 and repeat an hour later. I need to go take a shower now. Forgot how dirty that job made me feel. Story 19. Back when I was in 8th grade, there was a kid named Nick who was in several of the same classes as me. He was a short, painfully naive guy, ready to believe just about anything if it was told to him in an authoritative tone of voice. He also fancied himself as something of a badass, and as such, when he was told that a surefire way to increase his reputation was to clobber the tallest guy on campus, he threw himself into the endeavor. As it happened, I was the tallest person that Nick knew, and he wasn't exactly confident that he could beat me up. "Hey, Max," he said to me one day, "do you want to make some money?" Nick and I had gone through numerous business transactions before, usually involving beef jerky. So the question didn't strike me as particularly strange. "What do you need?" I asked. "I have to beat you up," Nick said, "and you have to pretend to lose." "What? Why?" The other boy glanced around as though he was afraid of being overheard. "Some guy said I'd be more popular if I kicked you, but I don't want to fight you." "Again," I repeated. "Why? Why would that make you more popular?" "Can I pretend to beat you up or not?" Nick snapped, looking anxious. "I'll give you $10. I'd given stupider performances, for less, like the time that Nick had paid me to kick a garbage can full of bees, so I reluctantly agreed. At hearing this, the other boy wanted to choreograph a drawn-out fight scene, but I talked him into a more believable alternative. Nick would walk up to me, in full view of his audience, who would be watching from across the basketball court, sock me in the stomach, then drive his elbow into my back when I doubled over. I'd fall to the ground. He'd kick me. Then I'd claw my way upright and chase him until I succumbed to my injuries. That afternoon at recess, we put our plan into effect. Everything went exactly as we'd discussed, until it came time for me to meet Nick behind the gym and collect my money. "It didn't work," he lamented. "Everyone says I lost the fight. How does that work?" I asked. "I never even touched you." "Yeah, but you got up and chased me, and I ran away." The logic of that interpretation didn't make a lot of sense to me, but I didn't care enough to question it. "Well, I did what we agreed, so you need to pay up." "No," the other boy replied. "The deal was for you, to make me look tough. Now, I look even worse. Just imagine how you'll look if you don't pay me." At the time, I had meant to imply that I'd let the cat out of the bag about the true nature of our fight, but Nick took the threat as something a little bit more physical in nature. He offered hasty reassurances, handed over the money, then asked if we could stage another altercation in the near future. I told him that I'd need a larger bribe that time around, and that I'd need it before we fought. The price was apparently too steep, because we never had our rematch. Story 20. So I was a nude life model for hen parties, and also a topless butler. Let's see. Press-ups with women sitting on my back, taking turns obviously. Pin the on the butler. Wasn't pins. But yes, I stood there, they blindfolded themselves, and had to approach me and try to put the sticker on my apron on top of my junk. I actually suggested this game, They were originally going to do it to a poster. No, they were not hot. Stripped a bit. Happened to have done a term of pole dancing lessons a couple years before. Danced, swung on poles, etc. on a pink party bus. Waved my dick around in middle-aged women's faces. Then had a 70-year-old woman lick whipped cream from my pecs. Abs, and she tried squirting it on the willy, but I stopped that. After the bus got into London, it stopped by the embankment in London. I got out in my boxers and took pictures with the hen party. This then morphed into me taking pictures in my boxers opposite the London Eye with random tourists walking past. I was a sort of tourist attraction for like half an hour till I got cold, posing with the bride-to-be who had been convinced to strip down to bra and panties sitting on me while I was lying down as if she was writing. Hottest woman I'd seen in real life. Her body was front cover of magazine worthy. Probably the highlight of my entire career. Degrading, but man don't care. Underwear modeling on a catwalk for a gay underwear fashion event. One of the pairs was see-through, a picture of which was later uploaded to Facebook for everyone at my uni to see. There's probably more, but that's all that springs to mind. Story 21. Not necessarily for money, but in high school I went naked hot tubbing in exchange for my friend's Xbox 360. I owned Fallout New Vegas but didn't have an Xbox of my own. I just borrowed other people's. Getting naked wasn't the issue because I had already gone to nudie hot springs and skinny dipping with these guys. I was just a nerdy homebody and couldn't be bothered to leave the house that night. Unbeknownst to me, I was apparently relatively attractive, fit and skinny. And they wanted me to go and get naked to try to get the other girls to do the same. I specifically remember one of these girls was super hot, and I was really surprised to hear she was going. So it was kinda like a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to our little high school brains. Turns out I'm bi. Anyway, the deal was struck. I showed up and took my swimsuit off. Other girls took their swimsuits off. I got my Xbox. Nothing ever ended up happening with any of those guys and the girls, but I guess they might have seen boobs. Story 22. I was homeless for a bit after high school, living out of my car. I had some of my things with me. One of these items was over the course of my childhood my grandfather had collected those quarters of all 50 states for all of us grandkids. I opened that up and used the quarters for gas money to get a job. I have been trying my best to recollect them. Story 23. My dad was a dealer and therefore took us around his addict friends and dealers. I was around 7 when they needed to keep me occupied so they could go get high, so his friend promised me a $20 bill if I cleaned out his refrigerator. Of course I agreed, without even seeing the fridge. I opened up a nasty, moldy, stinky, bug-filled box. It was completely covered inside with spilled soda and potato bugs, maggots, black mold, fuzzy mold. It was awful. And I'm fairly certain this would be considered child endangerment today. They didn't provide me with a mask or gloves. But I wanted that $20. So I got to work. I'm not even sure how long I was working on it, but I got it as clean as I could before my dad told me it was time to go. I never got that $20. The next time I saw my dad's friend, I mentioned he owed me money and he laughed and said, "Oh, that's right, I owe you $5. I'll bring it next time, kid." And that's when I learned people who abuse also abuse people. Story 24. I was homeless for a bit after high school, living out of my car. I had some of my things with me. One of these items was over the course of my childhood my grandfather had collected those quarters of all 50 states for all of us grandkids. I opened that up and used the quarters for gas money to get a job. I have been trying my best to recollect them. Story 25. I was desperate for a job when I was 15, and after seeing an ad from Vector, a company I'd never heard of, I applied. Immediately after I applied, like within 20 seconds I got a call, and it was a response from someone who was ready to offer me the job, pretty much on the spot, without any sort of interview or anything. As sketchy as that was, I continued on. Then they got to the point that I had to buy product to sell, and I wasn't comfortable investing money if I knew nothing about this. Instead of politely declining and hanging up, I started talking, and halfway through the sentence, I hung up and pretended like my call dropped. They called me back immediately, so I answered, and I kept pretending like my voice was cutting out before I hung up again. They called back again, and I didn't answer. They called back a second time, and I didn't answer again. That number ended up calling me like 3 times a day every day for the next 2 weeks until they finally gave up. As a 15-year-old, I was so afraid of confrontation and saying no thanks that I just let myself be haunted by their unending calls.